Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 296. Alan, I kept my underpants on, Dershowitz. As you all know, he was attempting to gain access to sealed documents from the Ghislaine Maxwell and Virginia Roberts defamation case. Now, he's attempted to gain access to these files numerous times already, and he has been denied each time by Judge Preska. Well, today, he was once again denied as he tried to gain access to these documents. It sure seems that Judge Preska has had enough of Alan Dershowitz's antics. For a hotshot lawyer, Mr. High Flyer in the courtroom, Mr. I win all my cases, well, you sure are catching some serious L's in Judge Preska's courtroom right now. And it's glorious to see. Now, this is recent. This happened today. So I wouldn't be shocked to see old Mr. Dershowitz go crazy with the tweets soon, flying off of the handle and, acting all sorts of unhinged, because we know that's what happens every time he takes an L or more information in the case comes out that puts him in a negative light. Now, Alan Dershowitz is going to get his day in court, right? That's what I've been screaming for here on this podcast. Again, I don't speak for anybody else. I don't know what anybody else is up to. I don't even really pay attention to the timeline on my Twitter or anything like that. So I don't know. But me personally, I want this man in court. I want him under oath, and I want him answering questions that matter. That is what I'm calling for. Alan Dershowitz likes to paint it in a light like people are calling for him to be dragged out of his house and not given a trial and just thrown in jail. That's certainly not what I'm calling for. But there is plenty of smoke here, okay? And plenty of evidence that Alan Dershowitz has been anything but truthful when it comes to his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and what he might know in regards to what Jeffrey Epstein was up to. And that's not even getting in to the allegations made against him by Virginia and Sarah. This man has tried to wage a war in the public view, and when that war started going south, he began to cry that people were talking about this in public before there was a trial, before anybody had seen anything of the evidence. They're just, well, Mr. Dershowitz, that's a page right out of your book, sir. That is the same way you defend all of your clients, is it not? You wage a scorched earth policy. And now that your chickens have come home to roost, now that your template has been copied, you are not liking the results. You don't want people talking about you in the public sphere. In fact, you're so unhinged and this has you so shook that you're threatening to sue a TV show because they mentioned you on it. Breaking news, Mr. I kept my underpants on, Dershowitz. Nobody needed the TV show mentioning you to think you're a reprehensible human being. Because I'm pretty sure you understand that a majority of people feel that way. And the few people that are still defending you, well, I guess I really don't want to talk about people that are obviously suffering from CTE or other brain injuries, because that is the only reason, logically, that anyone would ever defend somebody like you at this point. So tonight, our article is from Law and Crime, and the headline is, Alan Dershowitz loses bid to access secret Jeffrey Epstein files. Author, Colin Kalmbacher. And again, props to Law and Crime for doing such a good job following this the way they have. They've done a really, really, really good job of being all over this as far as the criminal and courtroom side goes. They've done a good job explaining it, and I've had quite the journey of learning reading their articles with you folks here on the podcast. So again, make sure you check out their website and you check out their work. Harvard law professor and celebrity attorney Alan I Kept My Underpants On Dershowitz was dealt a setback in federal court on Wednesday after repeated efforts to access a full suite of documents related to his former client Jeffrey Epstein were denied. And again, we've been covering this now since the beginning of it all, right? And Alan Dershowitz has attempted multiple times to get his grubby little fingers on this information, and each time Judge Preska has denied him. It's like watching a top-notch goaltender in the NHL make save after save after save and deny the other team scoring any goals. That's basically what's going on with Preska here. All of these requests from Dershowitz are pretty much ludicrous. He thinks he should have access to these files for some reason, but I don't know in what reality he's operating, but he most assuredly should not have access to these files. Mr. Dershowitz has had several bites at this particular apple, Senior U.S. District Judge Loretta Preska says at the outset of her order, meaning he's tried this tactic multiple times. All right? There's no more apple left here. We're down to the core, buddy. You've chewed off all of your apple. You're at the core. There's nothing left here to chomp on. The answer is no. Go back to Martha's Vineyard and beg to be allowed to play in the naked volleyball game again, because you're not getting your crypt keeper fingers on these documents. Dershowitz has made several failed attempts to modify a years-old protective order in the settled defamation case between Epstein accuser Virginia Roberts and alleged Epstein accomplice, co-conspirator, fellow child abuser, general all-around scuzzbag, Ghislaine Maxwell. While the lawsuit between Roberts and Maxwell was settled in 2015, Roberts and her legal team have fought for years to unseal the entirety of the documents in that case. And that should just show you right there and tell you exactly what you need to know. Why would Virginia and her legal team try and fight to get these documents unsealed if they weren't the truth? And on the flip side, why would Ghislaine Maxwell, Alan Dershowitz, and the rest of the hodgepodge group of disgustoids fight tooth and nail to keep them all under wraps? It doesn't take a genius to figure it out, because Lord knows I am most certainly not that. But when you put all of the pieces together and you follow this case the way we have, you can only come to one destination. Those documents make up just some of the Epstein files sealed by various courts and are widely believed to contain the names of numerous elites in politics, finance, and the arts who presumably took part in the infamous pedophile's alleged global sex trafficking operation. It is still surreal to read stuff like this. I cannot believe that this was allowed to happen in this country and around the world in so-called civilized societies, the so-called Western world, for all of these decades. And all of these so-called elites, these people that think they should be our rulers, these people that think they're so much better than us, were so stupid that they didn't know it was happening. That's what they want us to believe. Or on the flip side, when we take a dip back into, reality, well, it's rather apparent that they knew, but they just did not care. And all of these elites, the political elite, the financial elite, the scumbags in the art world, their day is coming, folks. I know there's a lot of people that are skeptical, that have been skeptical. A lot of people told me I was crazy when I got on here and I was crowing that Maxwell was going to end up getting arrested. People told me that was never going to happen. Well, here we are. And I'm telling you, as we sit here, that these people who played key roles within this organization are not out of the woods. You see with Glenn Dubin and Eva Dubin getting subpoenaed. You see with Leslie Groff getting subpoenaed. That things are just beginning. Things are just heating up. And when you look at all of these documents that are under seal still and what they can reveal, folks, we aren't even close to the big grand finale here. The process of sealing, unsealing, and slowly releasing those documents has long been controlled by a protective order issued by the Southern District of New York in 2016. A high-stakes legal battle has been fought for years to have those documents released to the public on one side and to have the documents kept under judicial lock and key on the other side, due to the highly sensitive allegations they are widely believed to contain. And again, look, I really don't have any, I don't feel any compassion for these people that were running around with Jeffrey Epstein. All right? Why is your name even being brought up in something like this? You know, this is a whole different ballgame than one person making an allegation and not having any evidence. And, you know, this is a whole different ballgame we're talking about here. We're talking about people who were involved in a sex trafficking ring, okay? No gray area. There's no wiggle room here. And inside of these documents that are under seal, if your name is in these documents as somebody who especially participated within this sex trafficking ring, my man or my woman, I have zero compassion for you. I hope your whole entire spot is blown up. I hope everybody knows about it. And I hope you feel absolutely shamed. But you know what? At the end of the day, anybody who's in here who has these kind of allegations against them, they don't have the moral compass or the human empathy to feel shame. Dershowitz has an ongoing defamation case against Roberts, who also has a defamation case against him, which is a separate legal matter from the long-settled defamation case between Roberts and Maxwell. Now, you see what I'm talking about with all of the dueling lawsuits going on, criminal and civil? There's a lot of them, right? We have multiple lawsuits going on in multiple jurisdictions in front of multiple judges that contain multiple facets of this case. And each time we get a little bit of news like this, each time we get a little bit more context to add, it makes the bigger picture that much easier to see. Roberts sued Dershowitz for defamation in early 2019. Dershowitz countersued Roberts for defamation in late 2019. And again, we know that Dirty D, Dirty Dersh, Mr. I kept my underpants on. I only got a massage one time at my buddy Epstein's house. And it was from an older Eastern European woman. And I kept my underpants on, so everything's forgiven. Dershowitz. This guy is just unbelievable with his lines, right? The way he goes off the handle, the way he freaks out, the way he tries to demean people in public. Save it for the courtroom, big shot. Save it for the courtroom. Because what you're doing, your usual narrative, the way you usually try and destroy people in the public eye, that shit has all come home and boomeranged right around and blasted you right in the dome piece, and you cannot stand it. And it's making you squirm, and you are shook. And to tell you the truth, I am getting great joy out of watching you rage type. The elite attorney has consistently argued he needs access to all of the Epstein files to wage his continued battle against Roberts. He has consistently been denied such access by Preska, and third parties have argued against providing Dershowitz such access. So again, Preska has stood fast here. I really think she's had enough of Dershowitz and his nonsense, and I wouldn't expect Dershowitz to be able to pull off any of his usual loophole moves, at least in Preska's courtroom. The SDNY's Wednesday order was no different in this regard. Dershowitz was given another definitive, if not final, reply that the court will not modify the original protective order to give him carte blanche access to the files. And they shouldn't. Why should he have access to all of the information in these files? Why should he, a private citizen, have that access? They have nothing to do with the case at hand. If he wants this information, let him and his superb Harvard legal team, made up of Biff, Buff, Chad, and Chaddington, go and find it. Most recently, Mr. I Kept My Underpants On sought modification of the Maxwell protective order to permit him blanket access to all sealed materials and discovery at issue in the Maxwell litigation, a request that the court denied. The order explains, core to the court's conclusions were several issues. First, Mr. I Kept My Underpants On's request was staggeringly overbroad given the relatively constrained facts at issue in the Dershowitz litigation. So basically what Preska is saying there and what the court is saying is that he wanted way more access than he was even ever able to have or should have had access to. He was asking for way more than that even. And the court is saying he shouldn't have access to any of it. Never mind shooting for the universe like he's doing here. Zero chance, Mr. Dershowitz. Second, the proposed modification of the protective order would threaten to undercut the carefully planned unsealing process in Maxwell. And again, remember, they worked on the unsealing plan for a while in Preska's court. This has been an ongoing thing, and they finally have it where we have our first documents already. It's going to be a process, obviously, a marathon, not a sprint. And Dershowitz is looking to supersede all of that, jump the shark, and have access to everything. Because, at the end of the day, he's, Alan Dershowitz and all. While Roberts and her attorneys recently said they were glad to provide Dershowitz with additional information, Judge Preska was troubled by such an agreement based mainly on privacy issues and instead decided to grant a more limited form of accommodation. And I love it. I love Preska taking control here. At the end of the day, we know these judges rule in those courtrooms like it's their own mini fiefdom. So if you're going to rule like a dictator, at least rule in the favor of the people who deserve to be having some rulings go down their way, right? The court will permit modification of the Maxwell protective order to allow limited disclosure to Mr. Dershowitz of sealed documents and testimony that mention Mr. Dershowitz, subject to an exception that is the subject of a sealed order to be provided to Miss Roberts, the court order notes. So if something mentions his name, then Dershowitz might get access to that information as approved by Virginia's lawyers. The court will not permit modification to allow a disclosure to Mr. Dershowitz of sealed materials outside of that universe. So he's only going to get access to information that is okayed by Virginia's lawyers. So that's basically what that means right there. The primary reason for the denial is that multiple non-parties relied on the original protective order when they previously provided discovery in the contentious litigation. Giving Dershowitz unfettered access to those sealed materials would be in violation of those non-parties' reliance interests, Preska determined. And that's why Preska has it in place where they are contacted and they are told that they're mentioned before the documents are released. The court and the state couldn't rely on Dershowitz and his team for that same thing, right? For that same kind of secrecy. So, of course, they're not going to give him unfettered access. Then there's the matter of Epstein's survivors themselves, who lobbied the court specifically against Dershowitz learning their information. Per the ruling, the gravity of the privacy interests of non-parties, particularly non-parties who are alleged survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse, weighs heavily against the unilateral disclosure that Mr. I kept my underpants on Dershowitz seeks. Those interests are particularly acute given that the psychological and emotional well-being of survivors of alleged sexual assaults may be implicated by such a broad disclosure. Indeed, protecting such interests is one of the core purposes of the unsealing process in Maxwell. And you can read the full court order at this link. And of course, it'll be in the description box like usual. Now, Judge Preska is hell-bent on making sure that the unsealing process in Maxwell Roberts goes off without a hitch and continues to keep rolling. That's what this is all about. Just like she says here, she doesn't want to have to deal with the nonsense. She's worked on this plan to have this reveal go the way she has it set up. And she's not going to let Alan, I kept my underpants on Dershowitz throw a monkey wrench in that. So, Dershowitz catches another L. That means another victory for the good guys. And, again, it puts Dershowitz, once again, in Preska's scope. She's seeing what he's up to. She's taking a look at what his deal is, and she's not falling for his trick. She's not falling for any of the strategy that him or his lawyers have come up with. And Dershowitz is, for the first time maybe ever in his career, has finally found himself in a back alley legal punch fight. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. I'll be back tomorrow morning, and we will pick up the story there.